Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's video, as I mentioned in my previous video, I am going to upload the answers and the classes for those students, that is the junior intermediate students who want to improve their marks by writing the supplementary exam which is going to be conducted in May 2023. So I have already mentioned in my previous video what are all the important LAQs as well as the SAQs. So one by one I will be giving you the answers side by side. I will be explaining to you also in a simplified form so that you will be able to prepare these answers, these important questions, and secure good marks in the supplementary exam. Okay. So the first LAQ is that describe the law of diminishing marginal utility, its limitations and importance. Okay. So actually there is a format in writing the essay answer. Okay. So the format is, first you have to write the introduction. So the first you have to briefly mention about the introduction, and then you have to mention about the statement of the law, what the law says. Okay. So statement of the law. Then the next one is the definition of the law. So if it is possible, you can give all the definitions which is given in the textbook, or if it is not possible, at least one definition you have to mention. And then you have to explain the illustration of the law. So illustration of the law in the sense the table, okay, the schedule, the utility schedule. And then you have to explain the explanation of the table. So explanation of the table. In this itself you will mention whatever the concepts of total utility and marginal utility. Okay, that concepts you have to explain. And then afterwards the diagrammatic representation. Okay, so the diagrammatic representation of the law and explanation of the diagram. And as far as law of diminishing marginal utility is concerned, you have the what is the relationship between totality. And then as far as this question is concerned, the question is describe the law of diminishing marginal utility, what are its limitations and importance. So you have to mention the limitations of the law and finally conclude it with importance. So this is the way the answer has to be framed. Okay. So starting from the introduction, one by one you have to write and you have to underline. So everything you have to explain briefly. So that is the way I have written the answer, and I will be explaining to you side by side. Okay. First, the introduction of the law. You can see that first one is the introduction. So what is the introduction? Who introduced this law? H.H. Gosson, isn't it? So H.H. Gosson was the first person to introduce the law of diminishing and equi-marginal utility. So in 1854, if you can remember the year, it is well and good. Okay. And later it was popularized by Marshall in 1890. In his Principles of Economics book, Marshall popularized the law of diminishing marginal utility and the law of equi-marginal utility. So this will be the introduction. H.H. Gosson introduced these laws, law of diminishing marginal utility as well as the equi-marginal utilities in 1854, and later it was popularized by Marshall in 1890. Now next point is the statement of the law. So what does the law say? The law states that if a person keeps on consuming the same commodity again and again, the satisfaction will keep on decreasing. That is what we are highlighting through an hypothetical example, isn't it? So that's highlighting it. Satisfaction will keep on decreasing. So if the consumer keeps on consuming a particular commodity one after another, the same commodity over and over again, the satisfaction he is going to get after successive unit of consumption keeps on decreasing. So this is what the law is going to highlight. Okay, so this is the statement of the law. Okay, then the definition. So the definition given by Marshall. So this, as far as the definition is concerned, the word by word it has to be as it is. You cannot change the definition. Okay, so and definition is always given in the inverted commas. So starting with the inverted commas, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in the stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. Close the inverted commas. So this is the definition given by Marshall. So if you want an explanation of this definition, the additional benefit, that is the extra benefit. When the person will get the extra benefit which a person derives from a given increase in the stock of a thing. So the consumer is having a stock of a thing, stock of a particular commodity, quantity of particular commodity. So if that quantity given increase in the stock of a thing, if the consumer increases the quantity of the thing, of the commodity which is consuming, so that additional benefit diminishes, decreases with every increase. So every increase in the quantity, the additional benefit keeps on decreasing. So this is nothing but whatever we have mentioned in the statement of the law, this is put it in Marshall words. Okay. So with every increase in the stock that he already has. So remember, I am reminding you again, the definition, the quotation has to be word by word as it is. You cannot change the words. So close the inverted commas and you have to mention who has given this quotation as definition. Okay, in this case this is Marshall. Okay, now the next thing is you have to explain it with the illustration of the law. So that's what we are mentioning. The law can be illustrated with the help of a table and a diagram. Okay, so the table, so in the table we are mentioning, we are representing the total utility and the marginal utility. So the first column, units of X. So hypothetical example, I have taken mangoes. Okay, commodity X happens to be mangoes. It's your wish. You can take any example or you can just mention it as X. Okay, so the first column is the units of X, that is mangoes in my example. The second column, we are representing the total utility. And in the third column, we are representing the marginal utility. So how we are arriving at the marginal utility? This is the formula. TUN minus TUN minus 1. Okay. So when it comes to first column, that is the units of mangoes. First mango, this is again a hypothetical figures, numerical figures. Okay. So first mango the consumer is consuming. His total utility, that is the total satisfaction. Utility is the satisfaction. So the total satisfaction, assuming it to be 40 utils. Okay. And the marginal utility is also 40 because that is the first unit. The second unit, the stock is increasing. So the consumer is consuming one more mango. So now it becomes 2 mangoes. So when the consumer consumes 2 mangoes, the total satisfaction has increased to 70. So how much is the additional 70 minus 40? That is equal to 30. That is what? TUN minus TUN minus 1. So this is 70 is the second unit, 40 is the first unit. So 70 minus 40 is equal to 30. So second unit, the only for the second unit, the satisfaction derived by the consumer is equal to 30 utils. Okay. And now again the consumer is consuming one more mango. So okay. So the third mango, when the consumer consumes, the total satisfaction increases to 90. That is means what? All the 3 mangoes gives the total satisfaction of 90 utils to the consumer. And only for the third mango, how much is getting? Again the same principle, same formula, 90 minus 70. So 90 is the total satisfaction for 3 mangoes. 70 is the total satisfaction for 2 mangoes. So 90 minus 70. Only for the third mango, the consumer is getting a satisfaction of 20. So you can see that the marginal satisfaction, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. First unit of mango gives him 40 utils of satisfaction. Second mango gives him only 30 utils of satisfaction. Third mango is giving him only 20 utils of satisfaction. So like that, when the consumer consumes the fourth mango, the total satisfaction for all the 4 mangoes is getting a satisfaction of total satisfaction of 100 utils. But only for the fourth mango, 100 minus 90 is getting only 10. So it has decreased from 20 to 10. So now what we are seeing observing here, so 40, when as far as the total utility is concerned, 40, 70, 90, and then fifth mango is also giving him the same level of satisfaction, 100. Okay, that means the total satisfaction has remained constant. So marginal satisfaction has become 10. So up to 4 mangoes, the total satisfaction is increasing. That is from 40, 70, 90 and 100. what is happening to the marginal satisfaction? It is decreasing, but it still remains positive. So that's what I mentioned, positive. 40, 30, 20 and 10. So it becomes positive. So when the consumer consumes the fifth mango, so what is happening here? The total satisfaction is remaining the same as 100. So the total satisfaction becomes constant, and that is the maximum satisfaction is deriving. So at fifth unit it is becoming maximum. Okay, so this is maximum, and marginal satisfaction is becoming 0. So 100 minus 100. Fifth unit also 100 utils of satisfaction. Fourth unit also 100 utils of satisfaction. So what is the marginal satisfaction the consumer is getting? Only for the fifth mango it becomes 0. Okay, now if the consumer is forced to consume the sixth unit of mango also, what happens? The total satisfaction will start decreasing. So that's why it becomes 90, and the marginal satisfaction is becoming negative. So 90 minus 100, it becomes negative. So this is what the law, this is the statement of the law. If the consumer keeps on consuming the same commodity again and again, the satisfaction will become negative. The satisfaction decreases and will become negative. Okay, so this is the table, the numerical example. And the explanation of the table, the next point you have to write in your answer is clearly mention explanation of the table, and in that you explain what is the meaning of total utility and what is the meaning of marginal utility. That is the concepts of total utility and marginal utility. So what is the meaning of total utility? It is the total satisfaction. So that's what it is. Total utility is the total satisfaction derived by the consumer after consuming all the units of mangoes. Okay, so all the 6 units of mangoes, after consuming all the 6 units of mangoes, what is the total satisfaction the consumer is getting? Okay, so this is the formula. Tu of n is equal to f of q of n. That means for the total utility of commodity n is the function of quantity of commodity, isn't it? If the quantity of commodity increases, the total utility will also increase. If the quantity decreases, the total utility will also decrease. Okay, so that's why it is a function of quantity of commodity. So that is total utility is a function of quantity of commodity n. Okay, then as far as the marginal utility is concerned, it is the additional satisfaction, isn't it? So if to put it in words, marginal utility is the additional satisfaction derived by a consumer when he is getting the additional satisfaction after the consumption of an additional unit of mango. So just now we have seen how we have arrived at the marginal utility, isn't it? The formula is mun is equal to tu of n minus tu n minus 1. There is another formula, marginal utility is equal to delta tu divided by delta q. So that is change in total utility divided by change in quantity consumed. So either way the answer can be derived, the answer will be the same. Okay, so then the same thing, we have, whatever I have explained in words, we are writing it. So what we are observing from the table, from the above table, it is clear that when the consumer keeps on consuming mangoes, what is happening to the satisfaction? The satisfaction keeps on decreasing, isn't it? That's what we have observed. And what happens when the consumer consumes the fifth mango? The satisfaction becomes maximum, isn't it? The total satisfaction becomes maximum. And the sixth mango, what is happening? And the sixth mango gives the negative satisfaction. So this we have proved through the table. The same thing, we have also have to explain it in the form of a diagram. So diagrammatic representation through the total utility and the marginal utility curves. So when you are drawing the diagram, first draw the x-axis and y-axis and what you are representing in the x-axis and y-axis. So x-axis, what we are representing? Units of mangoes, and y-axis we are representing total utility and marginal utility. So this is a simple plotting the points on a graph. Okay, so in the board, in the exam, you won't have time to plot properly, taking a scale and all. So you have to draw it in a free hand. Okay, so then you will be saving a lot of time. So practice drawing before itself. Okay, keep practicing so that at the time of the examination you will be able to draw it without wasting any time. Okay, because that there will be always a problem of time when you are writing the answer, economics subject. Okay, so you have to practice beforehand itself to draw the diagram. So draw it in freehand. So like this, so when you plot the points, this is the blue line. So that is the total utility curve. So I have, for the sake of convenience, I have mentioned given alphabets also, named it in the form of alphabets: A to B, B to C, and C to D. So the blue line is the total utility curve, and you can see that it keeps on increasing, reaches the maximum and starts decreasing, and the red line is the marginal utility curve. Okay, so A to E. And then after drawing it, after plotting the diagram like that, after naming the curves like that, please don't fail to mention TU curve and the MU curve. And at fifth unit, connect with the dotted lines from fifth unit to point C, and mention here MU is equal to 0. Okay, so how much of information you are representing in the diagram itself, it is much better. So, and then the same thing you are explaining in words. So the above diagram reveals that from A to B. So what is happening to A to B? So this is from A to B. The A to B, the total utility curve is increasing, isn't it? So that is when the consumer is consuming from first mango to fourth mango. And B to C, the fourth and fifth. So B to C, the total utility becomes constant. It remains 100, isn't it? So between B to C, the total utility is remaining constant. And at C, the total utility becomes maximum. So the total utility is becoming maximum. So you can also mention point of maximum satisfaction. So the consumer has attained the point of maximum satisfaction at C. That is when the consumer is consuming the fifth unit. And B to D, what is happening? And when the consumer is consuming the further, that is from C to D. So from C to D, the total utility starts declining, isn't it? And as far as the marginal utility is concerned, what is happening? The marginal utility, it is continued to decline, and finally it becomes negative. So the marginal utility curve continues to decline and becomes negative. So from the diagram from A to E. Okay, and then the next point you have to mention is clearly about is the relationship between total utility and marginal utility. Write in the same manner the way I have mentioned here, writing and underlining each and every, highlighting each and every point. Okay, so relationship between total utility and marginal utility. So from these curves, from the way the total utility and the marginal utility changes according to the quantity of consumption, we can frame the relationship between the total utility and the marginal utility. So what is happening in the first instance, when the total utility increases at a decreasing rate, that is from A to B. So A to B, it is increasing at a decreasing rate. Marginal utility is decreasing. So that is from first unit to fifth unit, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. And when total utility reaches maximum, at which point at C, isn't it, point of maximum satisfaction, the marginal utility becomes 0. At fifth unit, the marginal utility is becoming 0. And when total utility decreases, that is between C to D, the marginal utility becomes negative. That is when the consumer consumes the sixth unit, the marginal utility becomes negative. So this is the first part of the answer. Explain the law of diminishing marginal utility. So in the question, they have also asked the limitations of the law as well as the importance of the law. So the limitations of the law, to put it very, very simply, limitations of the law is there are certain assumptions of this law. In some of the cases, the law will not be applicable. So we are just highlighting in what are all the cases the law will not be applicable. So the first one, the law is not applicable to durable goods, because durable goods, mango is a perishable good. Only one mango, only once you can consume. But when you talk about the table, chair, bench, fan, fridge, TV and all, they are all durable goods. You will keep on using it again and again. Okay, so you cannot calculate the satisfaction. You cannot say the satisfaction will keep on decreasing. So the law is not applicable to durable goods, indivisible, like table, chair and all, indivisible goods. You cannot divide it into small units like how we are dividing mangoes or apples or grapes or oranges, isn't it? And complementary goods. What is complementary goods? Complementary goods, you need two goods at a time. Car and petrol, milk and coffee, like that, they are all complementary goods. Okay, pen and paper. So like that, two goods are required. So it is not applicable to those kind of goods, and it is also not applicable to non-homogeneous goods. There are so many types of goods, the law is not applicable. The second limitation is the cardinal measurement of utility is not possible. So here we are assuming that the satisfaction derived by the consumer can be measured in cardinal numbers. That's why we are representing in the numerical example 40 utils of satisfaction. Third, and the satisfaction increases to 70, the satisfaction increases to 100, isn't it? We are measuring in terms of numbers. But in actual practice, it is not possible to measure the satisfaction in cardinal numbers. So that is the second limitation. Cardinal measurement of utility is not possible. And the third one is the marginal utility of money is not constant. See, for every mango, the consumer has to pay the price. So we are not taking that into account, assuming consumer is not bothered about the decrease in his pocket money, because for him the satisfaction derived from money is remaining constant. Whether he is having 100 rupees or whether he is having the 10 rupees, his satisfaction remains constant. That is the assumption on which the law of diminishing marginal utility is based. That's one of the assumptions of the law. Marginal utility of money is constant, but in actual practice the marginal utility of money is not constant. At some point of time, the consumer will think, why should I spend on mangoes? Why should I decrease my pocket money when the mango is giving me lesser and lesser satisfaction, isn't it? So the marginal utility of money is not remaining constant in practice. And fourth limitation, the law is not applicable to hobbies. There are hobbies like people collecting stamps, people collecting coins. The more stamps, the more coins they collect, the satisfaction will keep on increasing, it won't decrease. And misers, whatever it is, whatever they keep on, it is also like a hobby. For them, the satisfaction will keep on increasing. And so in those cases, the law will not be applicable. And taste and preferences of the consumers, prices of the goods, etc. will not remain constant. So here one of the assumptions of the law is the taste and preferences of the consumer, the income of the consumer, the price of the goods, etc. all remains constant. But in actual practice, they are all not remaining constant. And sixth limitation is consumer is not always rational. So this is also assumed the consumer always acts rationally. Now what is the meaning of rational consumer? Rational consumer is the one who wants to attain maximum satisfaction at all time. That is one thing. And the second thing is the consumer is aware of, the consumer is having the proper knowledge of all the, he is able to calculate the satisfaction. He knows the prices of various goods in the market. Everything, he should be completely aware of the market conditions. But in actual practice, no consumer is having all this practical knowledge, and every consumer are always not knowing how to attain the maximum satisfaction. So the consumer sometimes acts irrationally. Okay, so these are all the limitations of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now moving on to the importance of the law. First importance, it is the basic law of consumption. This is the first law of consumption. There is also another name for law of diminishing marginal utility. This is the Gauss's first law of consumption. So the very first law of consumption is the law of diminishing marginal utility. All the other laws of consumption, law of equimarginal utility, the law of demand, they all are based on the law of diminishing marginal utility. So that's why it is the basic law of consumption. And the second thing, it explains the theory of value. Now what is the meaning of theory of value? Theory of value is nothing but determining the value of a commodity. What do you mean by determining the value of the commodity? It is nothing but price. Okay, so based on the law of diminishing marginal utility, the price of the commodity can be determined. So how the price, what is the connection here? See, if the seller wants to increase the sales, he should keep on decreasing the price. So that's how he has to fix the price in such a way that he is able to sell more and more amount of commodities. Because if the consumer consuming more and more units of commodity, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. So when the satisfaction keeps on decreasing, the consumer will not be willing to pay higher prices, isn't it? So when the consumer is willing to pay only lesser and lesser prices, the seller also has to keep on decreasing the price if he has to increase the sales, isn't it? Normally that is what happens in the actual practice also, isn't it? When the seller wants to increase the sales, he has to decrease the price of the commodity. So it explains the theory of value. And the third importance is it explains the diamond water paradox. So it explains the diamond water paradox. Meaning of paradox is something unexplainable. Now what is unexplainable here? Normally what we are doing, diamond is not useful to us in ordinary day-to-day living. but still we are prepared to pay very high price for diamond. But water, it is very very essential for us in our day to day survival, but still we are not willing to pay any price for water. So that is a paradox, that is something unexplainable. Okay, so now what is the connection between law of diminishing marginal utility and diamond water paradox? Because the thing is, diamond has got high marginal utility. Because of the scarcity, additional unit of diamond discovered is priceless, isn't it? So the diamond, since diamond has got the high marginal utility, the price of diamond is also high. But whereas water, there is no additional satisfaction for water. Water is having only the total satisfaction, only the total utility. There is no additional utility for water. So that's why, since the marginal utility is very very low for water, the price of the water is also very very low. So this is something paradox. So you can relate it to law of diminishing marginal utility. And then fourth important, the changes in design, packing, etc. of goods can be explained. Nowadays the sellers, what they are doing, the commodity might be the same, okay, but they can see, if the commodity is same, the price also has to be same. See, now what we are witnessing different brands of soaps, different brands of cosmetic, different brands of shampoos. So many varieties of goods are flooding in the market. Each is having different prices, isn't it? But maybe the commodity might be the same. So if the producer wants to change the price, then what he can do, the commodity, original commodity might be the same, but he can change the price by changing the way the commodity is being packed, the changing the color of the wrapper, the changing the color of the commodity. Different colors of soaps we are getting, isn't it? By changing the design, by changing the packing methods, etc., the producer can change the price of the commodity. Otherwise, if everything is homogeneous, one of the assumptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility is commodity is homogeneous, units are homogeneous. So if the units of the commodity are homogeneous, the producer cannot change the price. So based on this, the producer can understand, the seller can understand that if he changes the design, if he changes the packing method, then he can change the price of the commodity. Okay, then the fifth one, the law helps the government to frame suitable tax policies. Now what is the connection between the law of diminishing marginal utility and the government tax policy? So all of you must be knowing about the income tax. The income tax is, especially in India, we are having something called the progressive taxation. Progressive taxation, how the income tax is levied, higher the income, higher the tax. When the base of income is more, the tax rate is also more. So this is directly taken out from the law of diminishing marginal utility. So the law of diminishing marginal utility says that if a person has more of a particular commodity, the satisfaction will keep on decreasing. So the government has taken the direct example of this. If the person has got more and more amount of income, then his satisfaction might be less. So why can't we take it, take the money out, take that extra income from the person by levying more and more amount of tax. Okay, so that's why higher the income, higher the tax. So that tax policy is directly related to law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so these are all the importance and limitations of the law. So that's a conclusion. Thus, in spite of some limitations, the law of diminishing marginal utility has several theoretical and practical importances. Okay, so this is a very very important 10 marks question. So this is the first LAQ, the first important 10 marks question which you have out of the total 14 questions which I have given you in my previous video. Okay, so if you write in the same way, I'm sure you will be able to get very good marks. So if you have any doubts, please mention it in the comment box. And if you like this video, if you find this video useful, please like, share and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so until my next class, take care, bye bye.